Hey there, my name is Olivia Jimenez, and today I'll be presenting my opinion and overall impression on the presidential debates that happened between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. For context, this is my first time voting in a presidential election, and so as I've been engaged in this process, I've been very cautious and wanting to be wise and discerning in how I interpret and hear and go about the decision of making the decision-making process of who I'm going to vote for. Primarily, my lens comes through a Christian worldview, and so that comes through discerning what policies and what claims these candidates stand for. That's a primary outlook for me personally. And so that's the biggest consideration as I look towards who I'll vote for and who I will support in this upcoming election with my vote. Obviously, throughout this material and this class, American Democracy, I've been learning a lot about the importance of civic engagement, whether that's just from the founding fathers and their emphasis and intentionality in the Constitution, or whether that is just learning about civil liberties and civil rights. There's a lot of importance that goes into voting and engagement, and even this past week when we were talking about voting laws, I was really surprised to learn that my age group, my demographic, is some of the lowest voters overall, and knowing how hard a vote was fought for has motivated me to have a higher regard for its significance. And so now we're going to turn to an interview with my roommate. I'm OJ.
I'm Claire.
And this is for the presidential debate. So, you watched the debate.
I did.
And just wondering.
A condensed version. I'll say that.
Okay, awesome. What was your overall impression of the debate? What did you like? What were some takeaways for you?
I think my view of Kamala Harris shifted a little bit. Because frankly, most of the Kamala content I've been getting on my phone, in my algorithm, is just probably a lot of poor framing and showing her like her awkwardness and her weird word salads, and just like there's a lot of like, my impression of her was, wow, how could this lady ever be equipped to run our country? Like, she doesn't seem to take a very firm stance on any matter, and seems to be a little codependent with like the popular voice of any crowd that she's working with. Like, that's just kind of what I had gathered from videos I'd watched from like journalists, and then just like other little snippets I'd seen from her debates. But I felt like she came on stronger. Like, she seemed to be a little bit more firm with taking positions on things, and for the most part was good about tackling matters head on, like talking about policies and not just trying to like deviate, and just like there were a lot of, this is such a long answer, but there were various personal attacks to Trump, as he did to her too, but there's also like more factual talk too.
Interesting. Very good. Do you think that the interviewers, I guess the ones who are facilitating would probably be a better word, do you think they were fair in their question asking?
Yeah, they were pretty neutral, and when like there didn't, as far as I could see, there was no bias present. When Kamala Harris said anything that kind of contradicted herself, or like there was one example of her switching around policies, and then same thing with Trump. Like, there was like on the abortion matter, he kept like kind of swinging back and forth with what his stance was there, and did he support it or not.
Interesting.
And they would address both of those and call both candidates out on those things, and it was really refreshing to see that neutral type of posture.
That's awesome. What's important for you as a voter in a candidate?
In a candidate, someone who has integrity first and foremost. And unfortunately, I don't think that it shows in either candidate, because naturally everyone is flawed, and especially in the political sphere, like, people in those types of positions are under so much pressure and constantly are at risk of like blackmailing and like, just, I think most politicians are likely to make some pretty big mistakes, and because you're just in that kind of high pressure position, and I haven't seen either of these candidates ever just take ownership of the mistakes that they make, just like acknowledge this was totally wrong, and like, I acknowledge that I'm not gonna change. Like, it is completely just like a denial of ever being in the wrong, always attacking the other candidate, and so that's disappointing that those are our two candidates for that reason.
That was my roommate, Claire. And she was sharing from her impression. Again, Claire is also coming from a Christian worldview. And so she, again, is filtering all these things. A primary concern for Claire was Trump's stance on abortion. We later had an opportunity to talk about that. And she is an adamant advocate for pro-life in all circumstances, and actually is not in favor of the exceptions, because she feels that it can become a slippery slope for once we have one exception, where does those exceptions end? So that was Claire's impression of the debate. For me personally, as I watched the debate, a couple things stood out about Trump and Kamala and their different styles and their rhetoric, as well as what appeared to be very important to them. For Trump, for example, immigration was really important, the economy, as well as abortion. Those were kind of things that I heard over and over again him emphasize. I thought that it was interesting that the commentators repeatedly brought up his history as a former president, whether that was with him being impeached or in reference to January 6th. There was a lot of questioning referring to that. And it seemed as if there was not as much question about Kamala's political past, and I know that she does have a lot of history regarding being obviously involved in politics in California, as well as what got her into those positions, and I have heard that maybe it's not as cut and dry and clean as it could be, and so I was curious as to why maybe the commentators wouldn't have asked her about that. Kamala adopted a style of personal stories and anecdotes. She talked several times throughout the debate about growing up in the middle class, and her mom who worked really hard, and even mentioned at one point that she was very pro small business, and that was because she grew up with a close family friend who's a small business owner. And so again, for Kamala, abortion is important, the economy is important, but also another thing that it brought up was tariffs and fracking, obviously oil. That became an important issue for her, and Trump wanted to comment on that as well. Another observation I had was that the commentators or facilitators seemed to have some material that they pushed back on Trump with, some claims that he made, and that didn't seem to happen with Kamala quite as much, if at all. And overall, I would say that watching this debate really made me realize why people say that politics is a game that is to be played, because a lot of what I heard was Trump or Kamala attacking the morality and calling one another a liar, that they lied, that they didn't express this truly, that they've changed their opinion, and that made this very difficult to watch and interpret and navigate truth in as a first-time voter. And I left solidified in my opinion. But that being said, for me, as I've watched my parents and other peers and even my older siblings engage in politics, something that's shown through is that as a voter, I am particularly interested in policy over person. And so that means that I vote policy. So I'll vote for the policy of the party that is represented, even if I don't particularly love or enjoy the candidate of choice, because policy is extremely important. What do these people stand for, even if their character or their charisma or lack thereof inhibit that? And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. Next, I will be conducting an interview with Pastor Mike Whitford, pastor at Vanguard.
Go.
Hey, I'm OJ.
And I'm Pastor Mike.
And we're just going to talk a little bit about the presidential debate. So I was wondering, what was your overall impression of the debate between Kamala and Donald Trump?
Well, I think it's always good for us to have civil discourse on any issue, regardless of the day and age. I know in this day and age, it almost seems like people preconceive their ideas, so why debate? But I think it's still good to share thoughts and perspectives, especially when there's such stark disagreement between the two current represented political parties. And the importance, I would say, is to be fair. I don't think the debate was fair, to be honest.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. Can you speak a little bit more to like your overall impression of the commentators and how they approach that?
Yeah, I think we obviously have a biased media, and I'm talking this actually like it has a microphone. It doesn't. It's fun. But it's fun to do that even so. But I think that we have a biased media that leans to the left of the political spectrum, clearly, except maybe a few exceptions. And because of that, when you have that much bias controlled by whatever mechanisms behind the scenes, it's hard for those who represent said company to not be biased, even in a debate. And so their bias came out clearly as they were fact checking along the way, which they're supposed to ask questions and listen to the debaters, and they did more. It almost seemed like 3 against 1, and the one being Donald Trump against Kamala Harris and the 2 moderators. So that was my overall impression. Trump is always bombastic in how he presents himself.
Correct.
You can't escape that. Harris, though, isn't honest. And so you have 2 extreme spectrums where Donald Trump is probably too honest, and Kamala Harris is dishonest. So there you go.
Did anything change for you from the debate? Like, was your opinion swayed about anything, or?
Well, what they said, you have to listen to on both sides. And my hope is always that the person I disagree with is going to say something that surprises me. I want to be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
But based upon platform and policy, that's what I'm paying attention to. No, nothing changed my mind because I lean to a more conservative perspective. Pro-life, both for the baby and the mom.
Yes.
Womb to the tomb type thing, and so we need to definitely care for all those. I lean to a more biblical worldview, which is based in Orthodox Christianity, which for 2,000 years has been quite clear, though people are trying to change it today. So I do lean more to a conservative perspective in that regard. So no, and I think honestly Kamala Harris is the most extreme. Not only do I think, you can look at her voting record, she's the most extreme senator to the left of any senator in U.S. history.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so much, Pastor Mike.
Yeah.
That was Pastor Mike, and he shared really thoughtfully, and honestly, he has, what he said helped me sift through and interpret what was said in the debate. And obviously Pastor Mike, he may or may not have mentioned this, but he served in DC, and so he has a lot of familiarity with the inner workings of politics. He's intimately familiar with it, and so I really value his opinion, and I think he has a lot of wisdom to bring. So I felt thankful to have a chance to speak to him about this matter. And again, as a first-time voter, which I know is something that I keep on saying, but watching this debate really gave me a perspective on possibly why Americans are extremely polarized in their views. It made me think the accusation and attacking of each party toward the other is a reason why its supporters can't even seem to get along with each other, whether that's within a family, a brother or a sister voting one way and another brother and another sister voting another way, that it would create such division. It seems to be that because there is so much polarization between the two parties themselves, and attacking and even demonizing harmful language towards one another. I know personally I've been receiving a lot of mail, a lot of texts, a lot of ads, either in support of one party or another, and a common thing is that they are all attacking the other party. That it seems like the main, I don't know if platform would be the right word, but that they're running on is that they are not this person, that rather they support this person. And so I enjoyed getting to engage in this way and learn. However, it felt somewhat discouraging because of the way that there is a lack of mutual respect, it seems, between parties and candidates, and it seems as if there isn't a willingness to behave in a civil and kind way. And as a Christian, someone who is aiming to look more and more like Christ, I think that it made me a little bit discouraged. Yet, I have faith for what God wants to do with America, and He's not done. And so I feel thankful that I get to live in a country that has the foundation of Christian roots, where there are Christians, genuine, in high places of politics. And so that's my overall analysis and interpretation of the debate. Thank you for sharing this time with me.